Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is juggling and how we're often feeling like we're juggling for our lives with all the different demands and commitments and responsibilities we have. So we get to look today at how we can maybe get in greater alignment with the things that are really part of our own values instead of trying to be everything for everybody. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating this brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together, feel the friction, feel the sensation, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, and allow all these sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Good morning to everybody else who's joining us. It's great to be here with you. And we're talking about juggling. I was going to make today oh, good morning, Robin. Wonderful to have you here with us this morning. So I was going to title today's conversation priorities, but I think juggling is more apt, and it hits on the subject of priorities. Good morning, good evening, Gia. Welcome. So good to have you here with us. So juggling, we tend to, I don't know about you, but I know that on occasion I do this, and I know lots of other people who just take on way too much, trying to be everything to everyone. And it becomes a profound burden and kind of an impossibility to manage. And so I think we get to look at what it is that drives us to take on all these different things. Is it because we're people pleasing? Is it because we want people to think well of us, so we commit and maybe overcommit, and then when we overcommit, we can't help but underdeliver because it's just too much that we've committed to? So there can be the people pleasing angle. There can be the fear of missing out, FOMO, where we just have all these wonderful opportunities and don't want to miss any of them. And then we overcommit, and then we can't perform in the way that we would like to. Is it maybe feeling like we need the validation of involvement with all these things? There are numbers of reasons why we take on all kinds of different things, and part of it is not being able to really set our own priorities. So I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who is like this incredible force of nature on the planet, just remarkable, and does all kinds of amazing projects, and also sets themselves up for I'm going to say failure, but it's not really failure. It's just disappointment because they don't have the capacity to perform all these different tasks at the level that they would like to, and so they create ripples of dissatisfaction along the way because from themselves and from others when they're unable to meet the promised expectations. So Robin says, pleasers, overcommitment, sometimes out of our control. Sometimes it is out of our control, but less times than we think. So I had an example that brought this whole thing to mind is the person that I was just mentioning, and we spoke about how to prioritize, because it seems like there's so much to do and so many demands. And the thing is, we don't necessarily know how to sort through these things. And I know I've spoken about this before, but I'm going to talk about the quadrants of decision making. And most every opportunity can be sorted into one of these quadrants. And the first quadrant, which demands our attention, is those things we're using two criteria here: urgent and important. And so the first quadrant is things that are urgent and important. And important is an interesting concept because it requires us to look at how we're going to measure what's important. And I think that when we have a North Star, when we have a guiding light, so to speak, of where we're headed, what our intention is, what we want to create in the world, what our primary commitments are, then that helps us to measure what's important. We can use that as a ruler against which we can compare our priorities. So is this going to serve me in my mission? So for instance, this person that I'm talking about has a great fascination with pretty much the workings of everything, just really curious and incredibly bright and engaged with all kinds of things, and doing really big things in the world. And the garbage disposal broke, and they were engaged in trying to figure out how to fix the garbage disposal. And they were all fascinated by the garbage disposal. Now, you could say that maybe getting the garbage disposal fixed is urgent, but is it important for this person to be putting their energy in that direction? Or is it better serving their commitments to find somebody to fix the garbage disposal? Because the garbage disposal, the repair of the garbage disposal is kind of a diversion from all the other things that they're doing that are really important for their personal expression. So that gets to another quadrant of this decision making, which is urgent but not important. And it might not even be that urgent, but in this case, we'll pretend at least that it's urgent, but not important. So that's something that maybe gets delegated to somebody else. And then another quadrant is important, but not urgent. And this is an area where we get to pay more attention, because these are the things that are serving our personal growth, serving our vision, our mission, our soul, but they're not urgent. So they often fall to the bottom of the list or even off the list entirely. We get to elevate those things, to schedule time for them, to make space for them, to honor and recognize them, because those are the things that are going to bring us into our greater expression. And the fourth quadrant is not urgent and not important. And there's a ton of stuff that we add to our to-do lists that is neither urgent nor important, and we get to give ourselves permission to let those things drop away. So for instance, if I'll give my own situation. So if I wanted to be promoting myself, actually, I'll rephrase that. So many people believe that we have to have an active social media presence, and we have to stay on top of email, and we have to do all these sort of social obligation things. And I have allowed myself to recognize that these things are neither urgent nor important for me. And so I had on my list, to develop an Instagram presence and to develop a Twitter presence and, all the stuff that I just don't want to do. And I don't consider it urgent or important for my objectives. It's not in alignment. It's not serving me at this moment to be fulfilling the things that I am committed to. So they were shoulds. They were somebody else's shoulds, and they were on my list, and they had been there forever, and I couldn't get myself to do them because they weren't important for me. They weren't priorities for me. And so I finally let them drop off my list. And there was a tremendous freedom in giving myself that permission. And I would venture to say that there are probably things on your list like that where they are shoulds. They're other people's shoulds. Like if you have a to-do list and you have the same to-dos that are going from list to list to list to list and not getting done, you get to reevaluate whether they need to be done or not, because maybe they just don't. So, and then there are some things that we keep putting off that we don't want to do that really, really, truly do need to get done, like maybe preparing taxes and stuff that a lot of people avoid. But anyway, so this juggling thing, if we go back to that, having looked at the prioritization strategies, then maybe we get to not drop, but put down some of the balls that we're juggling, and immediately then that reduces our overwhelm at having to juggle all these different things. Now, getting back to things that we're juggling that might be showing up on our list because of people pleasing. So I have a friend who made a commitment to go on a trip to celebrate someone's wedding. And then the trip was supposed to be 2 weeks. And then it evolved into something that was going to be a month long. And the experience of this expansion for them was that it was overwhelming and it was just too much. But they really hadn't allowed themselves the opportunity to consider not participating in the whole adventure because they didn't want to disappoint anybody. But meantime, it was going to be a tremendous burden on them. And so we had a conversation and said, well, wait a second, you get to revisit this. You get to look at what works for you. The rules changed. Just because the rules changed doesn't mean that you need to comply with the new rules, or the new strategy for whatever this trip was going to be. It doesn't mean that it works for you. And you have permission to take care of yourself. And clearly this adventure was in its expanded version was going to be a burden. And so interestingly, they reassessed and tuned in with themselves and came up with that they would go for one of the extra weeks, but not all of them. They reduced the travel time for themselves. It felt better for them. And to their surprise, when they shared the situation or their choice with the other people that were going on the trip, nobody had a problem with it at all. So here they were trying to please somebody else by overburdening themselves, when in fact, the other people were fine with them making the decision that served them better. So I think that this is something that we tend to do, is to second guess other people, and to in the people pleasing, we project that we project other people's wants and desires, which may or may not be accurate. You know, we make assumptions about how other people are perceiving something, and then we make decisions that are often detrimental to ourselves as a result of that faulty projection. So again, when we tune in, and see, the other thing about doing things that are out of alignment with ourselves is that we end up feeling exhausted and potentially resentful, and it just has a whole bunch of consequences also about self-betrayal, you know, because if we're going to deny our own wants and needs as a in deference to somebody else, then we're kind of betraying ourselves. Now, there are times when there's something that we don't want to do, but we feel that we should. And we get to look at our own should around that to say, well, what's going on there? Why do I feel that I should, even though I don't want to do that? I feel like I should go to whatever family event, whatever it is. There are times when that feeling of obligation and responsibility has greater sway than the feeling of not wanting to go. And in that case, instead of going begrudgingly, instead of doing the thing begrudgingly, choose it. Choose it fully and wholeheartedly. Say, I am choosing to do this, not like I have to do this. I'm choosing to do this. And there's a freedom and expansiveness around making that choice that relieves a lot of the angst about, should I go, should I not go? You make a choice. You say, okay, this is in alignment with my greater values, and therefore I'm going and I'm choosing it. So the juggling, we've been looking at how to eliminate a bunch of the balls that we've been juggling so that it feels less frantic and more in alignment with who we are and what our values are. And I can't emphasize strongly enough how important I recognize it to be to make choices that are in alignment with your values. Because what happens is it builds a deep sense of trust for yourself. And I can tell you that there was a time in my life where I did not trust myself at all. I was so disconnected from myself, and not trusting myself was also a deep source of shame. And maybe shame was also a source of not trusting myself. It was like this never-ending loop. And building our trust in ourselves is a really important thing, because it's only when we have this connection to our core, when we have the connection to ourselves, when we're in alignment, that we can move through the world with greater confidence. When we start listening to that inner voice, when we start being responsive to the calls of our heart and soul. That's when we grow into deeper alignment with ourselves, and then deeper alignment with life and our unique expression. So I'm wondering, I'm wondering what you're all thinking in regard to this conversation. Prioritization, juggling, people pleasing, acting and living in alignment with our values, in alignment with our heart and soul. Rosalind says, so the genuine practice is not acquiring better behavior. Those things will happen. Better to connect with values. I think you said it so well, Rosalind, that behavior follows alignment. The more aligned we are with our values and with our essence, the more our behavior will reflect that. So I think you bring up a really good point, Rosalind, is that we often approach things from the space of behavior. We try to change behavior rather than looking at what underlies the behavior. What is the impetus for that behavior? And it's often reactionary. Our behaviors are often reactionary, where if we feel kind of adrift, we're trying to, we react to the environment. When we have greater clarity, it's like the ship has a greater sense of direction, and we can steer ourselves more effectively. So Robin says, you've nailed all categories of the cycles. Prioritize your journey. Think, act, then do. And I thank you for that, Robin. I like it. Think, act, then do. And I'm wondering what the difference is between act and do. But also I want to add feel. So sense into ourselves, sense into what's true for you. Feel the intelligence of your gut. Feel into what your being knows to be true or appropriate. And oftentimes we just get caught up in the doing, like the juggling a million balls, instead of looking at, well, wait a second, what are we juggling? And we forget to check in. So it's not just the thinking, because the thinking can tell us that we should take on more. The thinking can tell us that we should be doing things. And I think what we really get to cultivate is our sense of self, our sensing of self, sensing into what is that voice in our belly, or that feeling in our belly that lets us know that something is right for us, that something is in alignment for us. So Robin says, this is going to need to be an additional segment. You had me listening today. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad. It feels like this conversation today is pretty coherent, maybe for a change. I mean, sometimes it's all over the place, but today it feels like, all the pieces are coming together for whatever wonderful reason. I do think, the juggling act that so many of us engage in at different times. Robin says, awesome subject, need to address this in my life. Well, you're not alone, Robin. I mean, the juggling thing is something that we all do in one capacity or another, right? It's like when we start feeling overwhelmed, that's a big clue to say, hey, check in, look at what you're prioritizing, look at whether those priorities are really truly reflecting your essence, if they're reflecting your values, if it's reflective of the way you want to be living your life. Rosalind says, how to respond with an aligned or an aligned yes or an empowered no. I love that. I think everybody should write that down. Aligned yes or empowered no. And an empowered no is also an aligned no. Needs lots of conversation to support this. So, Robin says, you will retouch on this, right? Well, sure, you can help me. I'm not sure what we've left out. I think we've kind of hit all the points, and maybe we get to discuss it further, which would be great. You know, I do believe that alignment is the key pretty much to all of it. You know, I think alignment with our essence is the heart of fulfillment in life. So sure, Robin, the conversation it's a lot. It's kind of a wide ranging conversation. So I understand why you want to have more discussion of it, because there's nuance too. You know, there's all these different things that are affected by how we align with our values and our essence. You know, like the belly knowing, the part of us that really has the direction to be able to make maybe not logical, but informed choices. Sometimes the choices that we make when we're in alignment don't look like the rational ones, but they are the right ones for us. So Rosalind says, maybe revisit boundaries. Without them, you open self to the demands and whims of others. Well, I agree, Rosalind. And I think that as we gain greater alignment, then the boundaries become clear. They are not so much boundaries that constrain things, but they're really, you know, alignment, not alignment. And then it becomes easier to express them. So thank you so much for this really dynamic conversation today. I really appreciate it. And that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I encourage you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And until next time, so much love